On this episode of the show, look forward to a long, ranty, one-sided debate as I battle the Avengers versus the Justice League on Movie Feuds. Avengers was pure joy for most when it hit the big screen. Marvel slowly introduced the team in standalone films, setting up a world for them to play in and then nailed the execution when they finally battled side by side. It was a movie 4 years in the making, with Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America preceding it. We had 5 movies to get to know our leads, so when it came time for the main event, we already had a connection with most of these characters. We already knew Tony Stark was a billionaire playboy philanthropist before he even mentions it in the Avengers. We knew Captain America was a goody two-shoes man of principle. We were privy to the information that Thor was a demigod with a magical hammer and a dickhead for a brother. Hell, even the less popular characters got roles in these flicks, with Black Widow, Hawkeye, Agent Coulson, and Nick Fury popping up here and there. And all of this lead up made the Avengers that much easier to write and direct, as it didn't have to worry about origin stories, but instead could focus on the threat at hand. Now, this universe didn't start perfect by any means, especially when I don't even like half the origin movies. The Incredible Hulk, Captain America, and Iron Man 2 kinda sucked for me. But they're kind of required viewing to get the full experience out of the Avengers. It also didn't help that one of the main members was replaced, with Edward Norton stepping down and Mark Ruffalo taking over. Thankfully, he fit in nicely, and the Incredible Hulk is the least consequential to the story being built. Fast forward to 2016 and we have Batman vs. Superman, a movie that many, including myself, were puzzled by. A flick that works as a sequel to 2013's Man of Steel and also as a rebranding for Batman. The brilliant Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy has come and gone, had its time in the sun, and now it's Zack Snyder's turn. He and his team throw a lot at the audience in a clear attempt to rush their cinematic universe. DC and Warner Brothers have certainly been very busy. In less than 2 years, they released BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. What Marvel did in 4, they accomplished in less than half that time. Some would argue that that came at a price. I'd be one of those people to argue that. It came at a price. The Justice League launched with only half of its leads having solo films, and even then it doesn't really matter because Batman's nothing like he was in the prior film. Thankfully, Wonder Woman's outing was much better. Superman is easily the strongest part of this film. It's a shame he was killed off for some inexplicable reason in the last movie, only to be brought back in some weird half-assed way. Didn't 2 of the DC's major plot points revolve around the dangers of an evil Superman attacking Earth? Now in a complete 180, Batman takes all of 2 seconds to assess the situation, says F it, let's dig this corpse's ass back up, resurrect him, let him finish the job. Even if it risks doing exactly what I fought him for in the first place, which was him coming back evil, laser eyeing us to death, and going about his merry way. The biggest issue with rushing to the Justice League was not having an established team. Had the Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman had their own film or team-ups, we could have saved a lot of meandering time doing quick introductions. Not only that, but how much money is Warner Brothers throwing at these top-of-the-line actors who get no more than 2 minutes of screen time? Jeremy Irons? Where is he at? He's Alfred for like 5 seconds. J.K. Simmons? Academy Oscar Award winner J.K. Simmons. Maybe a minute. Maybe a minute of film time. Amy Adams. Diane Lane. These people matter. Third-rate characters like Nick Fury and Agent Coulson got more screen time individually than all these characters combined. As far as the main cast goes, I'm split down the middle. I've always liked Henry Cavill as Superman, and he's even more likable this time around. Gal Gadot didn't sell me as Wonder Woman in BVS, but that was due to the fact that she was so forced into the picture and not so much her acting. She quickly sold me though in her standalone flick, and I felt bad for her having to be in the Justice League. She deserved better, especially when acting next to Ben Affleck, who looked like he wanted to be home watching Netflix for most of this flick. Batman somehow went from a dark, brooding, murderous detective who could stand toe-to-toe with Superman to a careless, bumbling punchline who's bested in most interactions. There's actually a scene where he pratfalls on the ground, camera bird's eye on him, laying there paralyzed, going, "Ugh! That's Batman." Dark, edgy, gritty. That's Batman now. To some, Ezra Miller as the Flash was a welcomed addition, providing awkward, nerdy observational humor. I found his timing to be off and forced. Jason Momoa worked far better as Aquaman. A one-note brute that hits the bar just as hard as he hits his enemies. I didn't need a background story or expositional dialogue to understand this guy. We did get some of that still, but it was done quickly. And that's the biggest praise I can give the Justice League, is it does move quick. It clocks at a good clip. That brings us to Cyborg. What do you say about the character who has nothing going for him? The writers attempt to give him a 2-minute backstory, but they're so uninterested, why should I be? Oh yes, and he can't control the machine parts of his body until he conveniently just can. I think this was a contribution by Joss Whedon because it's very similar to that of The Incredible Hulk, in the Avengers film. At one point he's trying to smash Black Widow in a non-sexual way yet, and the next he's fully in control of his actions. You could explain both of them away on your own, but the script should have done a better job there. Robert Downey Jr. is on round 3 of Iron Man here, and he is just as confident and great as ever, delivering memorable line after line. In fact, the Avengers is chock full of great one-liners, unlike the Justice League where I can't think of a single one outside of "my man" and "booyah." I know booyah is the thing Cyborg says all the time, but it wasn't earned here because he had no personality leading up to this phrase. The biggest takeaway is the teamwork aspect. The Avengers lineup is full of inflated egos, and the villain of the picture, Loki, knows this. He also knows he's outmatched, and the easiest way to defeat his enemies is to have them defeat themselves. This leads to some fantastic small-scale battles between teammates and makes their eventual partnership all the more satisfying. Even Hawkeye, who is a zombie for the majority of the picture, gets some great hero shots, both from the camera and his trusty bow. Justice League attempts to do the same thing, but with minimal effect. There are no big moments like the Avengers city battle showcasing a flurry of action and signature moves from our heroes. Instead, we have the Flash slowly running in the longest circle imaginable to tip Wonder Woman's sword back to her. It's uninspiring and it's not very interesting to look at. Plus, we've already had X-Men's Quicksilver done so much better with the slow motion segments. There is one moment, however, that worked wonders for me, and that was when the team has a small fight with a confused Superman. This is a damn fine moment, and just a tease of how good these movies could have been had they been given the proper time and care in the script department. When Flash is running around and Superman does the quick eye look at him, and just the reaction is just, oh shit. The rest of the fights consist of members jumping high and landing in hero poses. I mentioned Loki, who is still easily the strongest Marvel villain to date. Harnessing the powers of tricky magic and the Tesseract, he's able to twist the Avengers into fighting internally while he gets his invading army ready. Now that army itself is completely void of personality, just destructible fodder to mow down, but the main villain has conflict, bad blood with his sibling, and an entitled attitude. It's not deep stuff by any means, but it's enough to get you invested. DC/Warner Brothers had a lot of time to see what the competition was doing wrong and right. Yet they somehow managed to shit out the lamest bad guy since Thor 2. A big CG demon-like creation that wants to terraform Earth using 3 mother boxes. Is that enough to go on? No, not even close, but who cares? WB mandated a 2-hour runtime and you can read a comic book to fill in the millions of questions, but you won't care enough to though. This first round has gone on far too long and I'm already digging into story stuff, so let's go there now. Booyah! When the secret agency S.H.I.E.L.D. is infiltrated and attacked, it is up to Nick Fury to call upon his secret weapon. A special task force of unique individuals from all walks of life. A womanizing genius with a disposable income and an iron suit. A brilliant scientist with a serious case of the Mondays. A demigod who has a special love for his hammer. An American hero who was frozen for 70 years, and a guy that can aim really, really well. Oh yes, and Scarlett Johansson in tight leather brandishing a gun. On paper, she's completely unqualified to be on this team, but she does manage to hold her own and even gets a spot in the trust circle. After coming to blows both mentally and physically, they begrudgingly team up and save Earth the only way they can. Together. It's an incredibly satisfying action flick with a ton of standout moments, funny exchanges, and genuine heart. For comic fans and moviegoers alike, it was the culmination of years of work coming to a perfect head. Director Joss Whedon delivered a movie both young and old audiences can appreciate. It was going to be super tough for another well-established comic book universe to topple it. Let's talk about Justice League. Our film opens with Batman thwarting a criminal on a rooftop. The twist here is that the Dark Knight has no interest in the common thug. He has bigger fish to fry. Instead of arresting this dude, he uses him for bait to figure out the mystery behind this creature. Then he lets the presumably murdering racist go as he figures out what the symbols left behind the alien bug's corpse mean. Why the alien bug left behind 3 cubed symbols is beyond me or anybody for that matter. The greatest detective in the tri-state area comes to the conclusion that a war is coming and he needs to put together some sort of suicide squad to save the day. So he rounds up a guy he saw once on a camera living underwater. He collects a teenager who can run really fast and for some reason has already made a superhero costume. We have no backstory for that either, but who cares? Superhero movie. You love this. He tells his butler to contact Wonder Woman because she is the only person he actually knows, and she probably has information on the strange happenings going on. Once Batman assembled his crack squad, they are ready to take on Steppenwolf. They get their asses properly handed to them and realize they're a garbage team. So what do they do next? learn to fight as a cohesive unit and save the day. Now fuck that, they dig up Superman's corpse, mother box this bitch back to life. He promptly leaves, so they shrug their shoulders and press on again without him. Superman eventually returns and saves the day and reminds the rest of the Justice League how incredibly useless they are. Side note, what is the point of having a dude who can communicate with fish and has the ability to manipulate water if you don't have him do shit with those skills? Seriously, all he did was jump high and stab creatures with his trident, which contains more than 3 prongs, thereby rendering it not a trident. Would it have been hard for him to call upon an orca whale, which he suited up with armor and Gatling guns on the sides? No, it wouldn't have. At bare minimum, he should have pulled a great white shark out of the water and thrown it at the bad guy. The film ends, as most do, with Amy Adams narrating for some reason. I don't think the movie started with Amy Adams speaking to us, and I'm not actually clear who she's speaking to, but Warner Brothers and DC didn't put any thought into it, so why should I? Much like the rest of the Justice League film, the music also went through the ringer pretty heavily. Junkie XL started composing the score, which I heard some of. It's honestly really cool, but alas, we probably won't ever get the complete set of songs from him here. He did work on the Come Together remix, which is solid, but that's the only piece I believe you can hear in the final product. Instead, Danny Elfman was brought on to provide his talents. Unfortunately, it's pretty lackluster with only fleet moments of inspiration, which come in the form of the nostalgic Batman and Superman themes. But the Avengers is no better in this department for me. The theme song by Alan Silvestri is fine enough and serviceable for the film, but there's nothing that really jumps out, and Marvel's biggest misstep was not providing their individual characters with themes. DC gets this part right, with brilliant scores for Man of Steel and one that I would come to love with Wonder Woman's. It was out of place and jarring in BVS, but once her standalone film came out and hearing it again, it's solid. Unfortunately, the Man of Steel theme song is absent. Why is there zero consistency in this universe? You got that damn thing right. You had a theme song, use it. As for the effects, Jesus, how much time do you have? The Avengers had a lot of CG, yet things still have a level of realism. It's a lofty goal to nail down, considering their scenes featuring a giant green monster man smashing aliens down the sides of skyscrapers. There's an impressive amount of digital and practical effects on display. Justice League looks like a cartoon, and not the prettiest one either. Snyder's previous film, BVS, was dark, dreary, and beautiful. It was very well shot. He has an eye for visual splendor when it's done right, but Justice League is a hodgepodge of visions being jerked back and forth like a tongue stuck to a flagpole. It's painful on the eyes, and that's obviously credited to the fact that Zack Snyder had to bounce halfway through his vision to go be with his family during a tragedy. So Joss Whedon, the Avengers director, had to step in and then pick up the pace. And I think a lot was scrapped, I think a lot was reshot, and because of this we have a blend of themes and ideas and even comedy styles. Oh, and Superman has painted on lips. That's the thing we do now in movies. We paint parts of faces back onto people that can't shave. Then there's the villain Steppenwolf, who looks like a DLC character from Injustice 2 with less creativity. Now, Justice League can be fun because of this too, because it's freed itself from the limitations of any sort of reality or any semblance of realism. There can be a lot of fun to be had here, and there is. The Mother Box Keep Away segment on Themyscira was a blast to watch. And I'm also very impressed with just how short they managed to make Gal Gadot's skirt in this one. And this is of course complemented by multiple upskirts and voyeuristic shots, which are of course insulting, but for the perv in me, I quite enjoy. They did not need to do that. Speaking of the costumes, we have a mixed bag. I think Captain America's is just plain terrible, and it's much improved upon in The Winter Soldier. JL doesn't fare as well, with Wonder Woman of course being the highlight. It was great seeing color on Superman too. Batman looks pretty awkward, and I think that's mainly due to the fact that the color was so pumped up after the fact. Dude's meant to be barely visible from the shadows, not walking down the street on a nice summer day. I have no idea how they came to the conclusion that Cyborg looks good. His torso looks uncomfortable, and for some reason he modifies his symbol to match the folder from BVS that Lex Luthor made. Still can't get over those fucking folder icons. Who made them? Why do they exist? For what purpose do they serve? I need to move on. BVS is not a good movie. It's not a smart layered movie. If you like it, that's great. But stop pretending that it's this deep, brilliant flick. I don't particularly care for cheaters. It took me a long time to build my channel to the place it's at now. It's not that impressive of a number, but I've worked at it, damn it. I put in a lot of time, energy, and heart into this passion project of mine. When I look at this DC universe, I see a cheater. A franchise that wanted to arrive where Marvel eventually got, without putting in the necessary work. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan around even. I don't have a horse in this race. I could give a fuck if the next 4 Marvel movies suck. I like the films. I don't think any of them are amazing, revolutionary pictures. Just a good time at the theater. I wish I got that from BVS and Justice League, but I don't. When I see the bullshit that they present, it just rubs me the wrong way. I'm very interested in what you have to say though. Leave a comment, vote for your winner, and remember, this is more than just reviews, this is movie feuds. Honestly, I would love if they released a Justice League behind the scenes someday, a documentary going over all the shit that happened behind the scenes, because that seems far more interesting than what I was presented on the screen.